Welcome to the Solid Verbal. The Solid Verbal.
Come after me! I'm a man! I'm 40!
I've heard so many players say, well, I want to be happy. You want to be happy for a day? Eat a steak.
It's that woo woo!
And now, Dan and Ty.
Welcome back to the Solid Verbal Boys and Girls. My name's Ty Hildebrandt. Joining me as always, my good friend, my colleague, my co-host, a gentleman I will have the distinct pleasure of seeing in the flesh and blood tomorrow.
Yeah.
Dan Rubenstein, sir, how are you?
I'm good. I was hoping you were going to continue with the introduction and go with, oh, Captain, my captain. But you didn't, and that's okay. We'll work to that, Ty.
If I wanted, at this point, because it's all muscle memory, right? At this point, I have so many different intros that I've used over the course of the last however many seasons we've been doing this now. More on that in a little bit.
Yeah.
I wonder if I really wanted how long I could do an intro for. Like if I just extended it out and tried to loop all of them together. Could I go 10 minutes doing it?
So you're introducing what exactly?
You. If I just want to introduce you, the show, the Twitter, the Instagram, the Reddit, subreddit now.
Yeah.
If I wanted to do all of that, just keep looping it with different contexts, I could probably do 10 minutes, I think.
That would be just not at all attractive to anybody.
No.
That would be great. A lot of fan cred talk. A lot of fan cred talk.
And there are shows that do that, by the way, where they're not actually doing a spoken word intro. They're intent on doing like the 5-minute hip hop loop together, dubbed up intro.
Yes.
That's one of my other podcast pet peeves.
Nice. Yeah. It's not great.
Which perhaps we can discuss on our History of show.
Yeah. Why are you here tomorrow?
Which we're going to record. We're recording 2 shows tomorrow.
Yeah.
In the flesh and blood in New York City. The first will be you and I, joined by our friend Bill Barnwell, who did the breakout show of the summer last year with us, the emo and pop punk show that, as I mentioned before, got like some of the most traffic of any show we've ever done on the Solid Verbal, and it had nothing to do with college football, which is awesome.
The Bill Bump.
Yes, and we'll also be joined by Ryan Nanny, the esteemed Ryan Nanny, Celebrity Hot Tub, to do a mystery show, which we'll reveal later on next week.
Yeah, that's the same show. Bill and Ryan.
Show. Yeah, they're all. Yeah. It's going to be the final 4 of us.
Yeah.
The second show will be the history of the Solid Verbal, because this is going to be our 10th season doing the Solid Verbal.
Yeah.
And we've decided to kind of follow in the footsteps of our friends over at the Starters and give you sort of a behind the podcast feel to what's been going on behind the scenes.
We give people, and a lot of people will ask us this question of like, how did you guys meet? How did the show get started? You know, how did you figure out what equipment to use? How did you know you were on to something, kind of thing? And we give various versions of our normal answers. And so now, hopefully, we will have a response in the form of a link to be like, hey, here are all of your answers. Sit down in a quiet place for an hour and a half and enjoy. And that's what we're going to do.
I'm not at all going to have any guardrails up on this discussion.
Same.
I'm going to be wholly honest with you.
Great.
To all these questions, all these topics. I'm just going to let it all out there.
You're going to rank your X's. Yes?
All of that. All that stuff.
Good.
Yeah. We're going to do all of it.
I like that.
As for tonight, though, before we get to that, we've got what I think is a great show. I got to give props to you because you were able to pull this one off without me earlier today. Tell us about the interview that you were able to conduct. This is a great, great show.
Thank you. So I've been following this guy on Twitter and I've watched him on TV, and Ty, we're scheme nerds. We're very dumb when it comes to scheme stuff. So we like having smart people on, like our friend Jeff Schwartz, our friend Chris B. Brown, Smart Football, Yogi Roth, all sorts. We talk to coaches about scheme stuff when we have the opportunity. But Cole Cubelic from the SEC Network, he hosts a radio show. He's very active on Twitter, posting pictures and videos and GIFs and whatever of trench warfare, of offensive and defensive linemen. A lot SEC, but not limited to the SEC, some NFL stuff. And I've just wanted to talk to him. We like nerding out over that kind of thing. So I earlier today spoke with him, connected with him, and it was a fun show. We talked about all things offensive line, defensive line, sort of trends, evolution, coaching, evaluation, and pizza. We talked about pizza. Yeah, we did not a deep dive, but a medium dive on some pizza topics because he posted his top 5 pizzerias on Twitter earlier today.
Oh.
I just, when somebody is new to our universe, I like to get a sense of where they stand on important topics.
How does he rank as it relates to pizza knowledge?
Well, he is from Alabama, which is not typically considered to be a pizza hotbed.
Not the pizza capital of the USA.
Doesn't mean they don't have good pizza, though, but it's just not known to be a pizza heavy area. But he had some strong thoughts about the best pizza he's had. It's not in Alabama, but has an Alabama recommendation. And I think a very well-educated pizza mind. Yeah.
Well, with that being said, we will break in about midway through, tell you about our fine sponsors this evening. But in the interim, enjoy Dan's free-flowing discussion with Mr. Cole Cubelic from SEC Network. War Damn Trench Warfare, Dan. Here we go.
Okay, I now have the honor, the distinct privilege of being joined by the SEC Network's own Cole Cubelic. Where else can people find you, Cole?
Pretty much every social media outlet via @Cole Cubelic, Cubelic. So that's Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook. I think that's it. I think that's all I have access to. So I've too many, but you can find me. It's not very difficult.
Are you a good Instagrammer? What are you Instagramming? I need to follow you.
I used to. I have a hashtag CubeKicks, so I have a bit of a shoe obsession. So I used to Instagram my sneakers a lot, but I have a 2-year-old and a 7-week-old, so I hadn't been able to come across many new sneakers recently.
Sure.
So, there's not a lot of sneaker pics going out. Now used to get my dogs a lot. People made fun of me, so I got off. So you're probably going to get wherever I am, if I'm at a cool place, and my daughter and my son. And that's usually about it. So
I like that. So we're talking food, animals, humans. That's literally everything that exists on Earth. That's great.
Everything that matters, at least.
Everything that matters.
Pets, shoes, kids, and football. I mean, I think in food, that's about it.
That's a good life. Follow Cole Cubelic on Instagram. Okay, so we, and I specifically, wanted to have you on because we like getting nerdy. We like talking scheme stuff. And specifically, we love talking about offensive and defensive linemen because they're enormous. There's just more mass to be talked about. And 2, if you can't play the trenches, you can't really win. And let's start out with the basics. Let's start out with what you actually need to win. So I guess since you work for the SEC Network, since you cover this sort of thing, you do a lot of film room stuff for the SEC Network, is this year moving forward a big year for a specific position along the trenches? Is it a good guard year? Is it a good nose tackle year? Is it a good tackle year? What type of crop is strong this year in the conference?
I think, first off, it's going to be a better offensive line year altogether. Last year going into the season, I was pretty nervous for offenses because you really had you kind of had the perfect storm in which you had a lot of quarterbacks who didn't have experience and we weren't really sure about their talent level. You had some of the most elite defenders on the defensive lines and front sevens that I can remember in one conference in one time, maybe in my lifetime. And you had some inexperienced offensive lines and offensive linemen. And we saw multiple quarterbacks pay for that. I mean, Chad Kelly went down. Sean White went down. I mean, go watch Austin Allen play at Arkansas last year. How that kid survived that, I have no idea. But Drew Barker goes down for Kentucky, and Steven Johnson had to sort of emerge. So this year, I think it's a little bit different. Most of those elite defenders moved on. I think there's a small handful of elite defensive linemen and linebackers back in the league this year. I mean, off the top of my head, I would go Arden Key, Trent Thompson, Deron Payne, and that might be it for like super elite defensive linemen and linebackers. There's not a ton of guys that really strike fear into the hearts and minds of opponents, especially offensive linemen, studying those guys. And you got a lot of offensive linemen back and a lot of talented offensive linemen back. Here's the weird part about it. Mm-hmm. You ask, is it a good center class? Is it a good guard class? I have never, in all my years of being a football player, following football, reporting on football, being an analyst, seen this many quality offensive linemen change positions going into a season. I mean, it's a laundry list of, and this is nationally too, but mainly in the SEC, of guys who are all SEC caliber draftable offensive linemen who have proven themselves that are going to be playing a different position this fall. I mean, Jonah Williams at Alabama is going from right tackle to left tackle. Jay Sean Robertson at Tennessee is probably going from guard to center. Braden Smith at Auburn, I would have him as the number one guard coming back at the conference. He's going to play right tackle. Martez Ivey at Florida is going from guard to tackle. Zach Bailey at South Carolina was on my first team All-SEC team at the end of last year. He's going to go to right tackle. William Clapp at LSU going from guard to center. I mean, just offensive line after offensive line after offensive line has these guys who have already proven themselves, who are a proven commodity in a certain position, and they're moving to go somewhere else. So I think for the draft, as far as it's concerned, it's a really good center guard year because some of these guys can play both. I don't think it's as good of a tackle class because Jonah Williams, number one, is not going to be eligible. I do like Martinez Rankin at Mississippi State, but he practiced at center in the spring. So we don't even know if he's going to bump back out to left tackle. But the centers and guards in this league this year, I think, are pretty good. And nationally, I mean, my favorite offensive lineman to watch in the nation is Quentin Nelson at Notre Dame. The kid is just an absolute animal. I mean, he is like a Neanderthal-type offensive lineman, just the way that he mauls people. It is a pure pleasure to watch. But you got guys like Orlando Brown at Oklahoma who have every bit of physical stature and God-given ability to be a Hall of Fame offensive lineman in the NFL. But he plays in a system that's going to make it a little bit hard to evaluate him based on what he does. He's not asked to do a lot of the things that he's going to need to do at the next level. So I think last year's draft was the least amount of tackles drafted since like the 70s. Right. Or offensive linemen in the first round. I mean, it was atrocious last year. And I think this year will be much better. The interior guys in the SEC are going to be better, even though some of those guys that'll be drafted to be interior guys are going to be playing on the edge in 2017.
I'm glad you went down the path you went down about evaluation and fit, because obviously there's talent everywhere, but the context of, is this offensive line best built for what the team is trying to do as a whole on offense? Is there a team specifically that when you look at offensive linemen 1 through 5, that it's not just that there's talent there, but that they're constructed to play the type of offense in an ideal way? Who is the best offensive line that you have seen going into the season as for fit moving forward?
Probably Clemson. Oklahoma would be there as well, because Oklahoma, the thing that you still have to like about Oklahoma and Lincoln Riley's offense is that they're not going to completely get away from running the football right at you. And now they're going to do it in an unconventional way. It's not going to look the same that it's looked at LSU for the last 8 years, which basically is just toss lead after toss lead after toss lead. It's not going to look like Georgia did under Mark Richt, where you're going to have a fullback and a tailback, and you're going to run ISO off right and left tackle. But they still want to have some sort of semblance of a north-south run game, and that's where you watch a guy like Ben Powers play guard at Oklahoma. I mean, he can come off the ball and move people. Right. I respect that. Now, Notre Dame, like we mentioned with Nelson and McGlinchey on that left side, they're going to do it in a more conventional way that we're used to. I'm just a little concerned about center right with that group, but I still think they're going to have probably a top 5, top 10 offensive line in the country. The group that really comes to mind is Clemson, because and Clemson fans probably don't want to hear this and don't like this, but they are a finesse team. They're not a team that's really going to maul you and come after you. Now, you look at a guard like Crowder, who, when he gets his hands on you, I mean, he can absolutely dominate you. But Mitch Hyatt and those guys are more. They are built more to help create space. They're built to move in space, to get out on screens, to get to the second level on zone replays. To pull on counter and G screen and power type plays. So I think that they're not going to be a bunch of NFL dudes. You're not going to see 4 of those Clemson offensive linemen drafted in the first 3 rounds. It's not going to be anything crazy like that. But for what they do, and that's very hard, Ben, for people like me. For people like me who are sort of old school and love to see offensive linemen coming off the ball and moving people, right? It's hard for me to sort of step back and watch Ole Miss and say, man, this has tons of talent. He's just not asked to do those things. I can't hold that against him. And that's the way I have to be when I watch Clemson. What they're asked to do, a great example of this is going back to Auburn. I went back this offseason and watched Greg Robinson at Auburn. Right. That dude was a dominant collegiate offensive lineman. I don't care what he did in the NFL. I don't care if he flakes out again this next chance that he It doesn't matter if he's considered a bust. Who cares? He was an absolute road grader at Auburn. He was dominant with what he was asked to do. And I think you look at a group like Clemson, the way their offense functions and what they're asked to do, they play really good football. So I would consider them to be a top 5 offensive line in the country because, first off, from an assignment standpoint, they're not turning guys loose. They're not busting assignments. You don't see a bunch of run through. And then they handle themselves very well on the plays and a little bit past the assignments as far as getting their guys blocked and getting a hat on the hat and finishing blocks. So it's not the ideal scheme that I would like to see a kid play in, but there's so much of it, you have to get used to it and you have to be able to judge it. So I think Clemson's almost a perfect fit for what you're talking about right there because they have different style guys. They have guys who can move. They have guys who can push you around, and they have guys who can finesse, some that are really talented, some that are just overachievers, but they are a really good fit for what they are trying to accomplish offensively.
What about on the defensive side of the ball? Is there a defensive line right now that you see just in terms of talent, just in terms of the scheme a team is running, if they're asking to play 1 gap or 2 gap, whatever, that this is the ideal defensive line for what their coordinator and what the defensive line coach is asking them to do?
And this is one reason that we should probably be having them in the college football playoff. It's the same team. It's Clemson.
Yeah.
And I think there's a couple of them in their conference. I mean, I ranked the top 5 defensive lines in college football coming into 17, and 4 of them were from the ACC. I mean, it's crazy. But you look at Clemson and having a guy like Dexter Lawrence, the only comp to him in college football is probably Daron Payne in Alabama. I mean, guys who are 310 pounds, less than 20% body fat, and can move. Like, you can't coach that. And there's what you're able to do with those guys, whether it's eat space and eat and 2 gaps, so to speak. And for people who don't know what that is, it's when you see a defensive lineman sort of engage and press an offensive lineman off of him and then shed him one direction or the other, he's 2-gapping to play both gaps, as opposed to a group like Miami, who I really like, who's really athletic and really quick, who most of the time under Coach Klug down there, they're just going to attack. I mean, it's their hair's on fire. They're coming at you. They want to cause problems on every play. And they do it a lot. And Clemson has the benefit of having a couple of elite edge guys as well. I mean, Christian Wilkins is sort of your versatile guy. Dexter Lawrence is sort of your interior power guy, sort of your boulder that you need. I mean, he's not a Derek Nottie at Florida State, John Jackson at Arkansas, who's like really just built to take on blocks and eat space. I mean, he could do a little more than that. And then you got a couple of edge guys that can sort of bend the edge and be speed rushers. And I think that's the versatility that you have to have, especially in today's college football, if you're going to really cause problems up front. And NC State's a team that has that. I mean, NC State, B.J. Hill is a dominant defensive tackle, and no one talks about it. Everyone talks about Bradley Chubb. And he's nice, and he's a nice edge player. He's not as speedy as like a Harold Landry at Boston College.
Right. But
NC State has some dudes on the inside that can eat blocks. They got guys who can penetrate and disrupt, and they got a couple of Chubbs on the edge who can go get it as well. That's probably my second or third favorite defensive line in the country, basically because of the depth and the different type characters that they have.
Is there a defensive front? And Pete Carroll talked about this, I think, a little after he was at USC, and he ran a 4-3 under type system that he really didn't feel like he had the type of time because of practice restrictions, and you only get 20 hours a week or whatever it is, that he couldn't really install the multiple fronts and the multiple really defensive looks that he wanted to fully run his defense, like we've seen him do very successfully in Seattle. Is there a team that you feel like has succeeded with that limited amount of practice time in installing, versatile looks?
Bama last year, but look at the kind of guys that you had, and we're going to talk about that from 2 different ways. It's frustrating for me that Alabama fans, the majority of them, just think that they're going to turn the page and have a very similar, not even the same, but a very similar group to what they had up front as last year. Jonathan Allen is the best overall defensive lineman you could player of the Nick Saban era.
Wow.
Tim Williams is the best speed rusher. He's the best speed rusher of the Nick Saban era. Ryan Anderson is one of the best edge players of the Saban era. And Dalvin Tomlinson was the most underrated player in the SEC last year. I said it from week 1 on, that the kid was not getting enough credit for what he was doing. You throw Daron Payne into that mix, and all of a sudden, you got guys, like we talked about, versatile guys, can do different things. Jonathan Allen can go out and play a 7 or a 9 technique and play defensive end and give you a little bit of a speed rush off the edge, or he can come play a zero nose. I mean, he can literally line up in a zero nose over the center and shoot A gaps. I mean, that's the kind of versatility that he offered. And then you'll get Tomlinson two gapping. Payne can do a little bit of both. Ryan Anderson can slide down if you need to, and then play out on the edge. So I think versatility is something that you have to have, like Pete was talking about first and foremost. You have to get away in today's defensive football from the old, well, this is our nose guard, or this is our three technique, or this is our backside defensive end, or this is our pass rusher. Guys have to be able to do different. And then you go to the mental makeup of those kind of guys. I mean, you talk to Ryan Anderson, you talk to Jonathan Allen, you talk to Dalvin Tomlinson and see what kind of individuals they are. You're not going to get to that point and have those kind of players and be able to do those kind of things defensively without guys that have that mental makeup. And I think that's probably the most difficult part that Saban and Pruitt and company are going to have to replace this fall. I talk about it with quarterbacks all the time. There's certain positions and certain levels that you want to try to get to as a player in college football that there's just not enough time to get there with what coaches are allowed to do. You're a Mike linebacker, you're a center, you're a quarterback in this league, you're a free safety in this league. You better be in there watching film on your own. You better be in there studying on your own. If you're a quarterback, you better be dragging those receivers on the field to run 7-on-7. If you're a center, you'll be going through pass pro with the other offensive line, taking snaps with your quarterback, because there's just not enough time in the course of a practice week or even an off-season week to get all that in. So the guys who can truly do the things that you're talking about, installing more defenses, showing more fronts, disguising more coverages, you need the mental makeup and maturity of a guy who wants that and is not just being forced to do it by his coach. There has to be a part of that individual that wants to succeed and excel and be better than anybody else in his position, and he's got to go do a lot of it on his own.
All right, Dan, let's take a break here and tell you about our good friends over at Proper Cloth. You have a Proper Cloth shirt, right?
Ty, we could not be recording this at a more perfect time.
Oh?
I am, and I'm going to prove this. I am literally wearing my Proper Cloth shirt as we speak.
Really?
This is 100% true. I swear on tacos. I swear on all things that are important and holy and special to me that I am wearing a Proper Cloth shirt right now, and I'm going to post the picture on our Twitter from the recording studio in the Vox Media office. Yes, I'm wearing it. It is unbelievably comfortable. It fits my form really well. It's the material is very, it's just rich feeling, Ty.
Rich.
Not a rich price.
I haven't gotten mine yet. I need to get on that because
it's great.
Finding a dress shirt that fits can be really hard. Sometimes you get a collar that's too tight or the sleeves are too long or I don't know, something's always off. Proper Cloth makes it an easy process because you go to propercloth.com. You create a custom shirt size in just seconds by answering 10 easy questions. It is foolproof. You don't even need a measuring tape. They have over 500 fabric styles to choose from, including premium Italian and Japanese fabrics, as well as business and casual styles, starting at just $85. And best of all, Proper Cloth, they guarantee a perfect fit, meaning that if somehow your shirt doesn't fit, they'll remake it for free. They're the highest rated custom shirt maker on Google. GQ says they're their favorite online custom shirt maker. The future of shirts is what I'm thinking, like the Uber of shirts or something like that. Stop wearing shirts that don't fit. Start looking your best. With a custom fitted shirt, go to propercloth.com/solid today. Enter the code SOLID, and you're going to save $20 on your first shirt. From propercloth.com/solid. Dan, do it today. Look like my compadre, Dan Rubenstein. Also brought to you tonight, while we're talking about dress attire, let's talk about Indochino.
Let's.
Indochino, Indochino. I couldn't even say the name of this company for a while. And then they helped me out by giving me a phonetic spelling guide here, which is always appreciated.
Yeah.
And I did a little bit more research on the company. And then we started doing ads about it, and people started writing in that, hey, I've got a wedding, I've got this, I've got that. People are really into Indochino, Dan. It is a made-to-measure suit that fits way better than any of the generic stuff you're going to find off the rack. People have written in, no lie, they love Indochino. Every guy likes how much better they look in a suit that fits them. They make it easy to do. It's a perfectly tailored suit at an incredible price. You choose, again, from hundreds of top quality fabrics. Personalize your suit every which way, whether it's for work, a wedding, another special occasion. Indochino, they suit up hundreds of guys, hundreds of thousands of guys even. They're now the largest made-to-measure menswear brand in the world. In order to cash in this deal, only for Verballers, you got to go to Indochino.com or drop by one of their 9 North American showrooms. You pick from hundreds of fabrics and patterns. Choose the customizations from lapels to pleats to jacket linings and more. Submit your measurements and you kick back and relax. You step into the best, most stylish suit you've ever worn in just 4 weeks. If you want to get the deal, though, any premium Indochino suit, Dan, $379 at Indochino.com.
Oh, my God.
When entering Solid at checkout.
That's incredible.
50% off regular price for a made-to-measure premium suit. Shipping is free. $379 and free shipping. If you go to Indochino.com, promo code SOLID, you'll never have to worry about a badly fitting suit or an expensive trip to the tailor again. Get ready to look like $1 million.
Yeah, the thing is, Ty, there are a lot of people that happen to be shaped like, I don't know, like a parallelogram. And that's fine. Maybe it's easy for you to get a suit. But for the rest of us, Ty, if we want to look great in a suit, sometimes you have to really customize to your weird shape. We talked to Adam Amin about this, right? And in no way is Adam Amin endorsing Indochino. This is just us. But I know we got a lot of trapezoids listening.
Yeah.
And if you're looking for an affordable option, I got to say, go Indochino for all of your trapezoidal needs. We're weird shapes out here.
All right. On that note, back to the interview. Mr. Cole Cubelic, SEC Network.
Is it possible with so much turnover now, and obviously defensive coordinators come in with their own idea of what they want fronts to look like, the transition from a 4-3 defense, a traditional 4-3 defense, obviously there are, almost countless iterations thereof, but in a 3-4, whether or not it's, the 1 gap or 2 gap we talked about, is it possible to make, if you don't have that type of top level talent that Alabama has had these past couple years, is it possible to make that transition seamless when the responsibilities of these guys are so different from defense to defense? The calls are obviously going to be very different. The sizes of people at various positions. Is it possible to make that transition in a year?
I don't think so. Not successfully. I really don't. And I think a perfect example of how coaches need to sort of check themselves and coaches need to coach themselves and maybe coach out of their own bad habits more than they need to coach their players. Look at Auburn going to Will Muschamp and then going to Kevin Steele the last 2 years. Now, how they were handled mentally and emotionally was a little bit different. But Will wanted to do everything. And I'll tell you this, Kevin Steele 2 years ago at LSU was the same way. And communication was a problem. I don't think college football fans have any idea how big of a problem across the board getting lined up on defense is. And you can just, think about what LSU fans are going to see with Matt Canada this year. And that's why he's able to steal yards from his opponents, because he's going to give you a tackle over, shift, fullback, motion out of the backfield, receiver come in motion, and then you're going to trade a tight end, all before the ball snaps on one single play. And if you can't get lined up, that's a free gap, and you got a decent quarterback that knows where to go with the ball and enough time for him to see it or relay that message to him, you're going to get yards. So I think getting lined up on defense is one of these difficult tasks that a coordinator has in college football, because number one, you're getting so many different looks from, think about in the NFL, you're seeing teams twice a year and the styles are not very different from team to team. So you can master that. You're also a professional, so you have more time to put into it. You go from a triple option 1 week to an air raid offense in college football. I mean, you're seeing completely different styles, completely different pace, completely different personnel groupings. And it's just a lot for these young men to handle. And I think Kevin Steele did a great job at Auburn last year. My biggest concern with him coming in was he has got to dumb down the communication. And that doesn't necessarily mean terminology or the amount of defenses they run. He's got to find a way to let his kids just line up and play ball. And I've had conversations with him, and he said, Cole, we're running base defense 70% of the time, and I'm just letting these kids go play ball and have fun. But I'm making sure alignment, assignment, effort are the three things that a defensive coordinator has to make sure that they're getting first and foremost. If you line up and you know what your assignment is on a play, and you give good effort, you should be like a top 30 defense in the country if you have any kind of ability as far as your players are concerned. Because those are the three biggest hurdles of any defensive coordinator. Now, we can go into disguising coverages and blitzes and stunts and all of that. That's all window dressing, icing on the cake, so to speak. But I think it's very difficult from a time perspective to get a lot of that in. And the coaches who understand, I mean, I had Orgeron on my radio show a couple of weeks ago, and he's like, I think we ran base defense 80% of the time last year. And even if you want to go to a three-man front, you hear Saban, he always talks about, when people start bringing that up, he'll say, guys, I don't know what you're talking about. We were in a four-man front 65% of the time last year, or 80% of the time the last 3 weeks. You have to do that to even things out when people are going 4 and 5 wide. So if you want to go three-man front, that's great, but eventually it's got to even itself out, and you're going to have so many guys removed from the box that are in coverage situations. You almost have to. You're forced to go to a four-man front. So it's a very difficult transition. A perfect, we talk about Arkansas a lot coming up this season. I don't feel like the solution to your problem, if you couldn't get lined up last year, is to completely revamp the defense. I think that's going to be a very difficult transition because it's more complicated than what it was a year ago. And to think that those guys are just all of a sudden going to get it and it's going to be better because it's different, that's the biggest misconception we have as college football fans, is that different is better and new is better. It's not a real thing.
Yeah, and obviously there's, a lot of evidence to your point. A team like Michigan State, for so long, they ran their base defense, they didn't get super exotic, and they just perfected it. They mastered it. Why do you think it is that guys come in and try? I mean, is it just a pride thing? Is it just trying to outthink the room? Why do guys come in and sort of say, we are going to sort of disguise everything, we're going to do exotic things, instead of saying we are going to start out very basic and expand from there?
I think ego is a big part of it. And I also think that coaches want to prove themselves. Coaches want to make things happen. Coaches don't want to be the team that gets you beat. So if you get a sack fumble, if you get an interception, a pick six, if you get, negative plays, things that show up in the stat box, things that fans can noticeably see, then all of a sudden that makes you look good. And the perception of you raises and then your value increases. And I think sometimes coaches feel like they need to win the game on their side of the ball all the time. It's one thing that I really like about Eddie Grant at Kentucky, their offensive coordinator. Mm-hmm. If he needs to go fast, he'll go fast. If they're up 10 in the fourth quarter, he's not going fast. He's gonna throttle back. He's probably going to go wildcat offense and play ground and pound. But if they need to chuck it 40 times and go fast and go tempo, then he's going to do that. And I see it more with offensive coordinators than defensive coordinators.
Right.
I mean, guys who are up 14 points in the second half, and they're still tossing the ball over the place and going fast and going tempo, and they'll tell you, well, that's just what we do. Well, that's not good coaching. You coach to win a game. You don't coach to score points. You don't coach to get sacks. You don't coach to get interceptions. You coach to win games. And I think the biggest difference is there are so many individuals in this sport instead of just guys buying into the team concept these days. And that includes coaches, players, administrators, everybody, that everyone's out to prove themselves and everyone's out to make a name for themselves, as opposed to coaching to help your team win a game, no matter how much you might like it or dislike it.
Coaches have, they've been everywhere. It's a highly traveled job. Everybody's sort of worked with everybody, but obviously everybody does things their own way. And specific to evaluation, how widely does evaluation vary from, college coaches looking at high school kids? Obviously Alabama has a system in which they, have a physical model. They want cornerbacks to be this size. They want, defensive linemen to be this tall, have this sort of wingspan, whatever. How widely does the evaluation process really vary?
Probably not as wide as we think, because a lot of college coaches are relying on the same people to evaluate their talent. I mean, how many? If we took the top 20% of Power 5 schools, how many different kids are they really going after every year? I mean, recruiting out of high school. So the process becomes more valuable the lower you get in college football, in my opinion, because those are the guys, the Dan Mullins are the ones that have to go after 2- and 3-star guys and try to turn them into big-time players at the SEC level against 4- and 5-star kids on a regular basis. So, I think your Michigans, Ohio States, Florida States, Clemson's, Auburn's, Tennessee's, Alabama's, for the most part, they're going after the same kids. So the evaluation process is not too much different. I think it changes when you get to the American Conference, when you get to the Sun Belt, when you get to Vanderbilt, when you get to Mississippi State, when you get to Temple, that's when it changes a little bit. And you take a kid that's 2 inches shorter, or you take a kid that's 15 pounds lighter than what you ideally would want him to be, but you see something in him. Jeff Collins, when he was at Mississippi State, would tell me he offered 3 or 4 kids a year without ever seeing them play football. He would see him wrestle, or he would see him play basketball, or he would see him in a 7-on-7, and he'd be like, athletically, I just knew I could turn that kid into a player. I would find a place for him on the field, and it worked a lot of times. So I think the process changes the lower you go in the realm of football, and from college to the NFL, I don't think it's very different. I think what they want, what they look for, is very similar. I just think you have different guys with different ideals about what they like and don't like. I talked to one scout who will tell you that 90% of his grade is based on ceiling and potential and what they think he can be. You'll talk to another scout that says, I need to see production, and physically he has to meet a certain criteria. So I think it probably varies a little bit more from college to the NFL, even though they're looking at the same pool of guys, a similar pool of guys. But in college, I think it definitely varies from top to bottom, because you're not picking from the same tree.
I'm glad you brought up other sports. I was thinking about this recently, and what sport? I mean, it's easy to look at a quarterback and say it's great that this quarterback played basketball and baseball, and Josh Rosen played tennis, so his shoulder is strong and his footwork is great. What sport? I guess specifically for offensive linemen first. If you find out that they play this sport, aside from whatever you've seen from them on tape, that they played this sport, that you are giving them, they're higher in your head. Is there a specific game that they would play? Is it wrestling? Is it basketball? What is it about offensive linemen outside of the field that would impress you?
It's wrestling, and I wish I would have done it. If I could go back and change something about my high school career, I was too embarrassed to wear a singlet because I was too fat when I was in high school. Yeah, but if I could go back, I would have changed it. I went to Homewood High School just outside of Birmingham. We had a really good wrestling program, and I probably should have done it just for the conditioning, and maybe I wouldn't have been as fat. Just practicing every day, I would have been okay. But that works so well with your balance, understanding your body, understanding how to fall, understanding how not to fall. And I mean, you think about the concept of wrestling and that one-on-one and what's required of you there. There's going to be a lot of that with a guard on a defensive tackle or a tackle on a defensive end. I mean, they're very similar engagements as far as human on human. So, and I think the footwork obviously is a big deal as well. You learn how to move on your feet. You learn how to be tied up with another individual who's trying to get you to the ground on your feet. There are a lot of value. If any offensive lineman came to me and said, what else should I be doing? The first thing I tell them to do is stretch, because most offensive linemen are not anywhere near flexible enough. The second thing I'll tell them to do is wrestle. It's going to help your conditioning. It's going to help your balance. It's going to help your feet. And it's going to help your body awareness. All are extremely valuable when playing offensive line.
On the other side of the ball, I think, Ndamukong Suh famously played soccer as a kid. Haloti Ngata played rugby, which is about the scariest thing I can think about right now as a high school kid. What about defensive linemen? What would impress you, I guess, beyond wrestling, because obviously a lot of those skills apply, about defensive linemen athletically?
Yeah, I think basketball is one that I like because it requires explosion. I mean, jumping for a rebound, jumping to dunk. I mean, even there's even an aspect of shooting that requires a little bit of explosiveness. And when you play defensive line, you need to explode. So if you had a guy who maybe did the high jump or maybe threw the shot put in track, those things also become a little bit valuable. And the lateral movement with your feet in basketball is something that I think helps defensive linemen a little bit more than it does offensive linemen. So those are the things that I think a D lineman, explosiveness is huge when you're talking about a D lineman. That initial twitch off the ball, that's where really most times if you're in a one-on-one situation as a D lineman, that initial get off is where you win or lose. Now, there are guys who are technically sound enough and strong enough and just physically gifted enough that can overtake an offensive lineman if they lose that initial get off. But the ones who can win it and win it on a regular basis are the ones that dominate. I mean, go watch Derek Barnett last year at Tennessee. He didn't have an array of moves. I mean, he wasn't beating guys with all these crazy inside spin moves and these double spin, these double head fakes and all this other stuff. That guy just had elite get off, and there wasn't anything many teams could do about it. Same thing with Tim Williams at Alabama. Really fast, but he won with get off, and he had elite get off. So that all goes back to being explosive and understanding how to be explosive, and especially in your lower body.
What is it about defensive line coaches or even offensive line coaches who are particularly good about finding guys? You mentioned Jeff Collins and watching them play other sports, but I guess the question would be, who are the guys right now that you admire their ability to always find and develop, even if they're not, 4-star, 5-star guys that are always able to see the potential and help the guys reach the ceiling? Who are guys that continually impress you?
Well, Jeff would be one. And I've known Jeff since he was at Mississippi State. And, you go back to when he had the Cheetah playing outside linebacker. He recruited Bear Wilson to play wide receiver there. And I'm not sure how many other football scholarship offers he even had. He saw him play basketball and brought him in. Dan Mullen's got to be a guy that you really like and respect when it comes to that, because just the Nick Fitzgerald, Dak Prescott alone. We don't even really need to go any further than that. The fact that he took Nick Fitzgerald away from Tennessee Chattanooga, a guy that was running the veer in high school, throwing the ball 2 or 3 times a game, and he led the SEC in total offense last year. And I've got him predicted to be my SEC Offensive Player of the Year this year. And then, of course, what he did with Dak, who was basically offered as a tight end at LSU or something crazy, and now look what he's doing in the NFL. So Dan, especially at that position, just kind of has an eye for talent, has an eye for being able to bring guys in and do some different things. And I think Will Muschamp and T-Rob at South Carolina are sort of the same way. They don't bring in just the elite 5-star defensive backs. T-Rob knows how to go into South Florida and see the way a kid runs, see the way a kid's hips move, see his mental makeup, and knows how to be able to see. He'll say, I can take that guy and turn him into a quality defensive back. And I think Will has that also. I've said for a while, since they were hired the bottom to complete the full roster than South Carolina's ever had, ever. And that includes Spurrier and Holtz and all those guys. And I know they had Clowney and Lattimore. They might not get the same top-end guys, but that bottom 20% of the roster, when they're done there, when they're rolling there, will be more talented than they've ever had it in Columbia.
All right, and final question, final topic, because we hit so much about offensive, defensive line evaluation. Today on Twitter, I just happened to come across this. You ranked pizza places. I don't want to ask you and go... I don't want to deep dive pizza if pizza isn't a specific passion of yours. So food-wise, this is very important to somebody who watches. Yeah. Okay, it is. I just didn't want to make sure that you were like a barbecue was something was above pizza. So your top 5. It's
kind of weird that I live in Alabama and barbecue is not probably in my top 3.
That's fine.
And I've got some of the best barbecue in the state, within a walking distance, which for a former offensive lineman is not very far. So pizza and Mexican are sort of that's where I fall off the cliff.
Okay.
I have kind of a personality that's, it's very compulsive, and I overindulge at times. And
okay.
Pizza and Mexican are the 2 things that'll get me every single time.
So what needs to be, first of all, let's start with pizza. You listed Pequod's, which I've heard great things about. My wife is from Chicago.
Oh.
Pequod's is your number 1. What makes Pequod's your number 1?
Okay, first off, everyone knows about Chicago deep dish pizza. It's not a secret.
Right.
And it's very rare that you can find it like you can in Chicago, like Lou Maltini's, I think it is. I've never been.
Malnati's,
but I've been to Giardone. Right, Lou Malnati's, I've never been, but everyone tells me how great it is. I've been to a couple other deep dish places in Chicago, but Pequod does this deal. They have this caramelized crust.
Yeah.
And it's the only place in the world that I've eaten pizza that I literally can't wait to get to the crust. A lot of places are like, oh, this crust is pretty good, or this crust is manageable. It's like, I don't mind eating this crust. Some places you just leave the crust. Pequod's, I'm actually excited to get to the crust at Pequod's. It's that good.
So that's a little bit of a Detroit influence. I don't know if you've eaten Detroit style pizza. They put the cheese so it goes over the crust. So that's you get that burnt cheese. That's a really great move. New York wise, have you spent time up here? Do you have a specific preference?
Not in the city. No,
Okay.
I've been, but for some reason I haven't eaten pizza a lot when I've gone to New York. What's funny about that is Homewood, Alabama, where I grew up, there's a place called New York Pizza. Now, it's not deep dish, and real authentic New Yorkers would tell you it's not necessarily New York style pizza.
Sure.
but they have a whole wheat crust, which, and again, we're talking about pizza, so it's not like anybody's really talking about being healthy when they're eating pizza.
Yep.
For some reason, their whole wheat crust tastes 5 times better than their regular crust.
Wow.
So if you go double pepperoni, whole wheat crust at New York Pizza in Homewood, Alabama, they have the best sauce I've ever had. The best sauce on any pizza that I've ever had is at New York Pizza in Homewood, Alabama. So it's not necessarily New York style, but the name of the joint is New York Pizza right there in downtown Homewood, and it is phenomenal. But I am open to suggestions for the next time I'm in New York to go grab some New York style pizza.
So my number one right now in New York is a place called Pauly G's. And I don't think I have to sell you too much on it because, one, it's great pizza, and two, the sort of
name.
The signature pie that they have is called the Hellboy, and it's spicy soppressata, so pepperoni essentially. And what they do is they drizzle a hot honey, like a spicy honey, on top of that. Not a lot, but you get that sweet and spicy, and it's outstanding. Do you have a
Pauly G's?
Yeah, no, it's special. Do you have like a maximum number of toppings that you will accept on a pie?
I have the place that I was telling you about, New York Pizza. They have one called the Statue of Liberty, which is what when I was a kid and we would go there, my mom would always get like a small or a medium Statue of Liberty for her, and it literally has everything on that pizza. And so for me, I wasn't really into that, but I would always like a piece or two of that. So I don't mind as much as you want to put on a pizza. It's great. If I have it my way,
your way.
I realize this is boring. Double pepperoni for me will make me as happy as anything on the planet. So it's kind of boring. It's not special. It's not crazy, but I'm just like a double pepperoni guy and I'm good to go.
I'm with you. I am totally with you that just cover the thing in cured meat and one specific one. So you get a good balance to it. And life is great. Life is really good with that.
The same thing, like I go to some of our favorite Mexican places, and I get the same thing every time. I get fajita beef tacos, soft. My wife is like, man, don't you want to try this enchilada or this quesadilla is good? I'm like, we got a really good thing here with this taco. And the way that they make it is even better. I don't understand why I need to veer off that path. It's kind of like, it's like what I was talking to you about some of these offensive coordinators. It's like, we're winning the game. Why do we need to throw the football? Let's just keep running the ball. Let's get out of here with a 10-point win on the road, and we're all going to be happy.
Have you spent time in Italy or Mexico?
I have been to Mexico, and I have eaten, I would say, street tacos, but it was actually a dirt road. So I guess dirt road tacos
Great.
Out of like a food truck in Mexico, and they were phenomenal. Some of the best food I've ever had in my life. I have not been to Italy. My wife spent a summer there when she was in college, and she's been begging to go back. So that's going to be, once our kids are old enough for us to really travel, that's going to be towards the top of our list.
I will give you this tip that we actually received from a listener. If you go to Rome, Roman-style pizza is like a cracker crust and not very good. So you have to make sure you go to like a Neapolitan-type place in Rome to get that real, like, a little bit of poof to the crust, a little bit of chew, real hot oven. That's the move.
See, and here we go again. That's that go-to for the people that like think they can do healthy pizza, and they want to do like that uber thin, like crunchy crust.
Right.
And it's like, guys, we're eating pizza here. Yep. Health should not be in the same sentence as eating pizza. Those two things don't go together.
I completely what about alternate cheeses?
I'm okay mixing cheeses a little bit. Like if you want to throw some different cheese in there, but again, I just go back to keep it basic. Let's stick with the fundamentals here. Blocking and tackling and is how we're going to win games. That's how you're going to get my belly with pizza. Blocking and tackling. Just give me cheese, give me pepperoni, give me a good crust, and I'm going to tell people that they should come eat your pizza.
I love it. That's a perfect note to end on. Cole Cubelic, SEC Network. Go follow him on Twitter, but especially Instagram. Dogs, humans, food, football, everything you possibly need in life. Cole, thank you very much for your time.
Hey, I really enjoyed it. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Okay, Dan. Again, Cole Cubelic, SEC Network. I like that. That was really good.
He's great. I liked it a lot. I didn't know what to expect. Very happy with it.
Very happy to finally have him on the program. As he said, he's a guy we've been following and paying attention to for quite some time. Certainly, he's welcome back to talk pizza, talk trench warfare, any point in time. Okay, as we said at the top of the show, we got two good ones coming out next week. One is going to be the show we're doing with Bill Barnwell and Ryan Nanni, the mystery show, if you will.
Mr. Deep Dive.
Yeah, the deep dive. And then the second is going to be the history of Solid Verbal. We've gotten a ton of great questions about that show, about, not only what are you going to talk about, but this is what we want you to talk about.
Right.
So we're going to do our best to try and cover as much ground as possible. Might run a little longer than an hour because we've been doing this for an awful long time. 760 some odd episodes at this point.
Totally free.
But it's going to be free, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
In the meantime, don't forget to follow us out on Twitter, like the page out on Facebook, check out the subreddit, which is picking up some steam, which is really cool to see. And don't forget to subscribe to the newsletter. If you're going out to solidverbal.com, we've got a newsletter link at the top. We are in the process now of firming up the details on the live show.
Yes.
And as we said time and time again, the newsletter will be your first line of defense if you're interested in coming to that show. We will hopefully be announcing that in the very near future, along with new T-shirts and some other cool stuff. So check out the newsletter.
Yeah, somewhere early to mid-August in New York City for the live show. It'll be similar but bigger because we sold out in like 45 seconds for the first one. It will be central. It'll be a good venue. It'll be great. There'll be food available for purchase, whatever. And the shirt will be soon. We're finalizing that this weekend, so that should be very soon. We've gotten a lot of emails about people who moved on the last shirt a little bit too late and wanted to know about a new shirt. So we'll be releasing that definitely early to mid-August. And beyond that, Instagram stories. We're answering bonus Q&A because we don't do Q&A every week, obviously, but Instagram stories are super fun. I almost get hit by cars. So it's enjoyment for everybody. So follow our Instagram account. It's just Solid Verbal.
For that gentleman over there, my good friend Dan Rubenstein, for myself, Ty Hildenbrandt, we will catch you all in just a couple days. A lot of fun stuff ahead. In the meantime, stay solid.
Peace.
So wait, you're really wearing a proper cloth shirt right now?
Really am. You should check your phone. There it is.
You look like you're being held in captivity, but it's a very nice shirt.
I'm not in captivity, although technically I am sort of in captivity. The room is 6 feet by 12 feet. It's pretty good in here. It used to be really warm, and now I'm okay. I've got one of those little cones, those sound cones around the mic.
Okay. But I mean, I just hope you get out. That's what I'm concerned about because we have to do 2 shows tomorrow. So.
I'll be good. What are you having for dinner?
I haven't decided yet. I do want to get one of those shirts, though. So I'm writing this down here.
Do it. It's actually, it didn't take that long.
Propercloth.com /solid. Solid's the code, $20 off the first shirt. That's actually a really good deal.